Welcome back to the Just Fantasy Baseball podcast. It's an early Thursday morning episode. We're recording this early Thursday morning because Vince has a real job. I'm trying to live the dream. How's that working for me? We made it work though. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah, we tried to get it done yesterday. It was just some scheduling stuff, but we're up early Thursday morning trying to get this done, and there's a lot of fun baseball to talk about. So let's dive into some.
And it starts with some headlines, including right off the top of the bat, obviously something you want to talk about because we've been talking about this, and that's Jackson Holliday. He made his debut, and that guy sucks. 0 for 4 in his debut. Dude struck out in his first at bat. He's not ready. Send him down.
Yeah, it was embarrassing, Jackson. Come on. No, someone asked me in the YouTube comments how much they should spend on Fab on a guy like Jackson Holliday if he's still available, which in most leagues he's probably not, but
He's not, yeah.
if you do still have him out there, I would say up to maybe like a quarter of your Fab budget left. I probably wouldn't be willing to go much higher than that unless it's a very deep league, maybe 15, 16 team league. But then again, at that point, he's probably already gone. So, don't spend half your Fab. You're going to need it. Injuries happen. We just never know. He's still young, right? Obviously, he's performed at every level, but this is the major leagues. Could be different. I just wouldn't go out and do it. But, he could prove me wrong and be one of the best second basemen. So if he's available, awesome. But 95 to 99% of leagues, he's probably not. So, but big things to come for him either way.
Yeah, and I think like at the same time, he could be really awesome, but he's one guy.
Yep.
Like he might, he could be everything he's hyped up to be. He'll still probably go through a stretch where he bats 167 for 3 weeks. You know what I mean? Like that's just Major League Baseball. And so, when you talk about unloading everything you have in the holster, right, for one guy, I don't care who that guy is, unless it's Ronald Acuna or maybe Mookie Betts this year. There isn't a guy that I would say go spend your entire Fab on, right?
Yeah. Even when you get close to target half your Fab, like you're just going to have holes later in the season that you have to fill. So I wouldn't. Some people will, and that's just the nature of it. You're probably going to lose on sometimes if you just go for a quarter, but I'm not. I'm not putting any more than that. So, but I'm excited to watch him. I tuned in to watch all of his at bats, and he didn't look overpowered. Obviously, Cutter Crawford looked really good in the first couple innings. So, but yeah, no, he's fun to watch. He's very excited. He looks like he's 10. So
he does look really young. Although it looks like he's gotten older. Like he does look like his facial structure, like not so much the features, but his facial structure looks like it matured over the last couple of years. When he first got drafted, it was like, oh my God, this is a child. But now it's a little bit better than that. So it's a little bit more bearable for someone like me, even though I look at the screen and see he's born 2004 or whatever it was, which is ridiculous. Like this guy doesn't remember the Red Sox World Series run in 2004. He wasn't alive for the Yankees dynasty. Like that's nuts. That's how long it's been since the Yankees were good. But whatever. Yeah, still crazy. Some more just unfortunate news. Kodai Senga was moved to the 60-day IL. So for anyone who thought he was coming back early May, which is what I thought really, now the earliest he can come back, I think, is May 27th is the earliest he's eligible. So, when they did this with Garrett Cole a couple weeks ago, it was really just like a clerical thing. Like, hey, we knew he wasn't coming back anyway. Here, I feel like it kind of felt like this guy was going to come back sooner. Now, does that mean, and I don't know if you have this in your prospect report, but, there's that kid who's been pitching well for the Mets down in the minors. I don't know if they end up calling him up, and don't mind me, his name's escaping me right now. He had 10 strikeouts the other night.
Christian Scott maybe would be my guess.
Yes, exactly, yeah. Scott. So, does that mean that's going to happen? What happens if you're a Senga owner? How do you look at him if maybe you're trying to trade for him? Things change obviously, but overall it just kind of sucks because he's one of the league's best pitchers. And I didn't read anything about a setback. But also they didn't talk to the media yesterday because their game against Atlanta was delayed. So it was kind of just like they put it out there that it happened, like it was a transactional move, and we haven't really heard what happened. So I assume we'll get more information today from the Mets, but just not great.
Yeah, if you drafted Senga, I assume you're probably holding. Um, if you're trying to trade for him, don't give up a whole lot. Maybe somebody on your bench or something like that. Because even when he comes back, if when he comes back in June, let's say, what does he look like? Does he take some time to really ramp up? We just don't know. But yeah, Christian Scott is a guy who should benefit from this. I'm very surprised they haven't brought him up already. I thought they were going to do that, but no, they signed Julio Teheran instead. Like, I didn't get that move. Christian Scott's
Well,
it's
he's done.
spread
They
decent.
DFA'd him,
Right. I know.
so
I
yeah,
know. After one ugly start, like I didn't even know why you needed to do
amazing
that.
they came
Like,
back and
just
won that game.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Christian Scott, yeah, if he's still available, he should be rostered pretty much everywhere, even in 12s. He's got big fantasy stuff. So yeah, he's going to be a guy who hopefully benefits from this. Because there are going to be guys who benefit from this, unfortunately.
Another big injury news, and this is another guy, Framber Valdez, also dealing with elbow inflammation. Now, I don't know exactly. I didn't see if there was an IL stint, but again, elbow discomfort for another one of these starting pitchers who's a top starting pitcher in the league. And it seems like it's every day there's someone new, and not just anyone, but guys who are big name pitchers, guys who are top of the rotation guys. Again, we did a lot on this on Sunday, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but the trend continues, and it's gotten to the point where if you have a top starting pitcher, are you looking to unload some of your top starting pitchers and maybe like, hey, I don't know, get a ton of value back because this guy might be a ticking time bomb?
Um, that's an interesting question. Framber did hit the 15-day IL. He'll be shut down for a few days just
Yep.
as and then be reevaluated. But no, no, because you still like if you have a healthy roster right now, which I do in a couple leagues, like a healthy pitching roster. Not all of them. Most of my leagues are decimated, but having a healthy pitching roster right now, you have like such a leg up that even if their guys go, if you want to trade an arm or two to try to get some value offensively, if you have a hole offensively, like a major hole, I could see that being the case. But if your offense is solid enough, I would take that leg up and I would just run with it. I would hold on to my pitchers. And if somebody wants to pay me for an arm, they're going to have to overpay because, like you said, that's just the nature of arms right now. And yeah, so I'm going to take because you still have half your categories are pitching categories. Like you still
Yep.
have to win those categories. So no, I'm not really moving on from any of my healthy arms unless like there's a deal that's too good to pass up. Like I'm trying to think of an example. Like I have Corbin Burns in a league, right? Like if the draft happens tomorrow, Corbin Burns is the number one pitcher, right? Like
Oh, for
far and
sure.
away, right? So I'm not moving on from him unless I'm getting like a top 10 guy. So yeah, I wouldn't move on from your pitchers just because you can maybe get some good value. It'd have to be like phenomenal value.
Right, and like it's easy to win some of those categories now, easier. If you just have one of those guys, and then again, if one of those guys, if your guy goes down, I mean, it's kind of what everyone's been dealing with. So you're not special.
Mhm.
Speaking of the top pitchers, uh, Zach Wheeler. I don't know if you saw this stat. I saw a fun stat. He has a 1.89 ERA through his first three starts. In those three starts, the Phillies have scored a total of 3 runs and the team is 0-3 in those starts.
No,
We
no, I haven't seen
commonly
that.
in New York we call this the Degrom. That is what it's commonly referred to.
Sure.
Uh, Not great, not great. If you're looking at a guy, former Degrom teammate. By the way, I'm wearing the Tiger sweatshirt,
Yeah, I love that.
and the first round of the Masters is actually just delayed because of storms. So I don't know why it feels like that happens a lot, but we start these things, and I don't know. You're in Chicago. It's nasty weather here today, New York.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Not looking great, but yeah, I don't know why we start these things like the same with opening day. We just start things in April when we know it rains every other freaking day. So that's that. But the Degrom stuff I thought was hilarious. Just crazy numbers.
Yeah, it reminds me almost like I haven't looked on it recently, but Mike Trout, right? I think he had what was it? How many home runs has he had that are solo home runs this year? So he has 6 home
It
runs
was
and
his
8
first four
RBIs.
home runs. I was going to bring this up. It
Yep.
was his first
Mhm.
4 home runs of the year were all solo shots. So he had 4
Yeah.
RBIs and 4 home runs.
That's kinda how
So
it
not
feels with that, right?
Yeah, his his fifth home run gave him his fifth and sixth RBIs, or maybe he had his sixth RBI
Yeah,
already at
no.
that point. But
So, yeah, 2
yeah,
2 home
but
runs.
the first the first four home runs, those were also his first four RBIs, which is just they're not pitching to him when anyone's on base, and when no one's on base, he's hitting a home run every day. He's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I thought that was pretty fun. That's what it reminded me of, like an offensive version of that, almost like just no help.
Yeah. I was at the Yankee game, by the way,
Mhm.
on I guess it was Tuesday night. So that was fun. I got to see Carlos Rodon shove. He's been awesome.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. He's been really good to start the season. And the other thing is Giancarlo Stanton is hot. And I don't even think he ever went through a stretch where he played this well, specifically turning on fastballs the way he is right now. But that was just cool to see. I don't know if, I don't think, in my opinion, it changes anything the way I feel about Giancarlo Stanton, but seeing him, again, I always loved him. It doesn't change how I feel. When I say that, I mean purely from a fantasy perspective. I wouldn't be going out and trying to get him right now in a
Yeah.
trade because he's always feels like he's one bad swing, run one bad step away from an injury. Uh, but he looks better than he did at any point last year.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're not in the buy low, sell high section right now, but he feels like a sell high if you can sell high on him. Um, is he your first who's hot guy? Is that where you're going, or you just want to bring him up because you love
I
your
just wanted to
Yankees?
bring him up. One of my not who's hot guys, but he would be on this list. I didn't put him on. He is hot though, and this is the last thing is Teoscar Hernandez. I kind of want to take a victory lap on that
Sure.
because it sucks that I don't have him in any leagues because I was so high on him coming into the year. I
Mhm.
talked about it so many times on this podcast how high I am on him. And then it just didn't work out for me to pick him up. I'm in two leagues. The best ball, obviously, you got him in that draft. It sucks. I'm kind of annoyed about it. But Teoscar Hernandez at the same time, like as much as it sucks that I didn't get him, I do want to talk about how awesome he's been because he's batting cleanup in that lineup now with the Dodgers, and he's one of the best in the league. I think he's top in RBIs, maybe second in the league in RBIs right now. The
Yeah,
dude is
he's,
just
mhm.
crushing it.
He's currently the number one right fielder in fantasy. Yeah, I mean, hitting 300, 15 RBIs, 24 strikeouts. Not crazy about that. That's almost almost a 50%. You're talking 40% rate. You don't like that, but when it comes with a 916 OPS, you're probably going to take that. So yeah,
Yeah, you'll
Teoscar looks
take
great.
it. And speaking of right fielders, just last quick thing. I think like we both had plant your flag guys. Kind of yours was Trevor Story. We should have done a bet because we had two very injury prone plant your flag guys. Mine was Starling Marte. Yours was Trevor
See,
Story.
you're gonna have to
Stories.
pull up the receipts on this one
I
because
will pull up the
okay,
receipts on this one. Story's out for the year, and Marte's still hurt, still playing. So I feel like I win automatically the
yeah,
Marte conversation just by that. So that's the last thing. All right, you want to get to the if you want. I mean,
no, no,
not
I
much to
mean,
say about that, but
yeah, Marte's on a
uh,
4 game hit streak. I'm gonna give credit where credit's due. He's on a 4 game hit streak, so he's hitting 256. He's doing fine. He's doing okay right now.
all right. So hit me with your first who's hot. Tell me who is hot.
My first who's hot is Justin Turner. Um, he is currently just raking. He's got 4 hits in the last 2 games, hitting 342, the home run, 7 walks, 7 strikeouts. So his approach is obviously there. OPS over 1,000, in the middle of a good Blue Jays lineup. So Justin Turner, he's not out there available, but he is one guy who has helped me in a couple leagues this week, and um, yeah, keep an eye out for him. Maybe he's even a guy that would be a trade target if possible because um, he's been doing it for so long, and I think a lot of people are going to write him off for his age. But uh, if there's a buying window, I'd be all over it for a good price, obviously. But Justin Turner is my first who's hot.
My first who's hot, basically based on just his last start, but he's been good enough to start the season that it's worth it. And then you look at his last start, it's like, oh my God, this guy is ridiculous. And that's Tyler Glass now. 7 innings, 14 strikeouts. He gave up only 3 hits and no walks, which is good for him. So Tyler Glass now, another guy who's just gonna you think at least stockpile wins, if nothing else. He's another ace that you worry about getting hurt, especially with his history, but he's been phenomenal so far this season in his new home. And for all the question marks surrounding the Dodgers pitching, because I feel like that's one of the things where it's like, hey, Otani's not pitching this year. There's some question marks there. How are they going to go through this season? This guy looks like he's passing the questions with flying colors and is that ace that the Dodgers hoped he could be.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told me before the season that Glasnow would be healthy longer than Garrett Cole, you laughed, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
good for him. Happy for him. We've been waiting for this for a while. So my next who's hot is Stephen Kwan, a guy that most people was probably off the radar, or maybe late in drafts. And he was a guy I targeted quite a bit because he has the super high floor that I like. And he's really seemed to take it another step further. He's at 386 with 2 home runs so far, a stolen base, just a 923 OPS. He's not hitting for a lot of power. He's only got 2 doubles, but he's getting on base. He's a great table setter for the Guardians, and 3 runs in the last 3 games, a 3-run games earlier, a week or 2 ago. So he's off to a phenomenal start, and love to see it. I got him in quite a few leagues. So Stephen Kwan's a guy that I've been all over for a while, and I'm happy to see him kind of flourish right now.
It's funny that you have that as one of your top guys because I'm going to stay in Cleveland for one of
Okay.
mine. I had Josh Naylor, and
Mhm.
I'm just trying to pull up his last week because I think his last week was really great. Yes,
Did-
in the last week, he's batting 476 with 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, and 5 runs scored. Or sorry, his OPS is 476. So that's just in the last week alone. Josh Naylor is hot on the season overall. He's having a solid season so far. 417 OPS, on base percentage, 3 home runs, 9 RBIs, 8 runs scored. But more than half of that production, and of course, the 476 on base has come in the last week. So Cleveland Guardians, baby. Hot team right now.
Yeah, did you see yesterday too was National Siblings Day, and both Josh and Bo hit home runs.
Yes.
Yeah, that was
Yes,
beautiful.
I did
Love
see
to see
that. I
that.
have Bo in one of my leagues. So, yeah, I saw that. That was fun.
My final who's hot, and I had him up and I just closed it. So let me get back to him. I mean, I could say his name. His name is Aaron Savali, for the Tampa Bay Rays. And so far, 17 innings over 3 starts, 6, 6, and 5, and an ERA of 2.12. He gave up 2 earned runs yesterday in 5 innings. So but his first 2 starts, he was phenomenal with 6 and 8 strikeouts, 18 strikeouts and 17 innings. The reason that I say he's hot is not because he's, one of the best pitchers. He's currently the 10th best starting pitcher right now, but it's just because, again, of where he was probably drafted and thought of. He wasn't thought of as a top 10, 15 guy, but I think that's where he can be. And I don't think people should be surprised if he goes out there and, he puts up a sub 3 ERA with, 200 innings and 200, maybe not 200, maybe closer to 180, 170 innings with just as many strikeouts, maybe even more. Like this guy, he's the real deal. And Tampa Bay knows what they're doing, right? They sprinkle their fairy dust on him. So he should be great in wins leagues and even quality starts leagues. He's got 2 of each so far. He's looking phenomenal so far. Aaron Savali is.
Yeah. All right. I have one more who's hot, my last one, and this one you're gonna like. Ellie De La Cruz. He was a guy we talked about.
Yes.
We
Uh,
talked about how he was struggling just about a week ago, right? And think about what he's done in that week because now his on base is up to 375. His OPS is over 1,000. He has 3 home runs, 13 runs scored, 6 stolen bases, 7 RBIs. The fact that he hits 2 home runs in a game, one of them's a 500-foot bomb and the other one's an inside the park home run. It's like you get the full spectrum of what this guy is capable of. Super cool. We know that when he is, raw tools, he might be the best player in baseball. And if he could put it all together for an extended stretch, he could be that best player in baseball, both offensively, defensively. I know it doesn't matter for us defensively, but of course, defensively will help him get him more playing time and all that. So this dude is awesome. Ellie De La Cruz is my last hot. He's been on fuego. You're not hot, some people who are a little cold?
Yeah, I did wanna mention, I almost had Ellie as my buy low. That window's probably closed right now, but
Oh yeah.
even when he was striking out at 40 to he was still striking out 40% of the time. Even when he was striking out close to 50% of the time, like, people are worried, yes, but if you could buy low on him, I'd be willing to probably take a shot because an owner might be willing to, wipe their hands clean. Oh, everybody was right. I shouldn't have drafted him and trade him away. Even when he was striking out 40% of the time, his OPS was still over 900, right? And he's currently, striking out 40% of the time and he has an OPS over 1,000. So, I'll take those numbers. He's hitting 318. Like, I'll take those numbers with a high strikeout rate because even with a 30% strikeout rate, which I think is probably where he'll end up, he's still going to be one of the best production players for fantasy. My first who's not hot, who's cold, who's not, is Francisco Lindor. It's been real tough to watch him. I've drafted him quite a bit, and hitting under 100, hitting 89.089 is just, it's atrocious. He's got one home run, no steals. This is coming off of his first 30-30 season, right? And people had super high expectations for him to, maybe just continue to go 30-30. And I will say, though, the one thing is I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm just remembering, like, Lindor had a very bad start to the year last year as well. And he really finished strong. So I wouldn't be shocked to see something similar. Maybe, that's just how some guys are.
He's just an
But
inconsistent guy.
yeah. Yeah, I'm be a little. I mean, he's in a 1 for 31 slump as of April 7th, and he's got a hit. He had a hit 2 nights ago, a hit 2 hit night, April 7th, but it's been ugly pretty much ever since.
My first cold guy is not necessarily like super cold, but by his standards, just not really what we expected from him, and that's Adley Rutschman. In that lineup, especially, the last week his on base is 250. Again, this is a guy you expect like a 400 on base from. This is a guy who you're drafting him for on base. You're drafting him for those RBIs and runs scored in that lineup. And he's just not giving you enough of that. We know he has no home runs yet. And sometimes that happens with him. He'll go through stretches where he has no homers, but no home runs. He hasn't stolen any bases, which, okay, that's fine. He's not going to steal bases. He stole one all of last year. But on the year last year, he had a 375 on base percentage. You kind of expect something like that to continue. And he did have 20 home runs. It's not like he's a guy who hits 7 home runs. Uh, and then just a couple RBIs, a couple runs scored the last week. Uh, like I said, not maybe the traditional cold, but considering how good that lineup is and how they've been productive, it feels like he's kind of not been productive in that lineup.
Yeah, he had 3 strikeouts last night. It was a little bit tough to watch for him. Yeah, I think that's a good call out. Even so, before last night though, he was hitting 316, which, with no power is not really what you want because, again, yeah, you
Yeah.
drafted him for some power, you drafted him for these counting stats, and yeah, he's just not delivering so far. But he still only has 43 at bats, right? We got to give him some time, and I know you drafted him in the 4th round, so I bet at this point you maybe wish you could take that one back. But he could end up
Well, we'll
still
see. I
returning
mean,
value. Yeah.
yes, at this
Mhm.
point, but yeah, all right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Um, my second who's not hot is Parker Meadows, and I was all over this guy for
You
the
were.
off season, and this one's really hurt. He's hitting 080 right now. No RBIs, no home runs. I'll take my losses when I have him, and Parker Meadows right now is definitely a loss. If you have better options on the waiver wire right now, I would not blame you for going out and getting someone. Um, Personally, I'm not, but if that's the route you want to take, I totally understand that because you can't let some of these new hot bats slip through your fingers. So Parker Meadows is a guy it's been tough to watch for me because, again, I have him in quite a few leagues, and I had at least moderate expectations, but it's been horrible so far for him.
My next who's cold is Yandy Diaz batting or his on base in the last week, 179 on base in the last week. Yikes. He has 3 runs and 3 RBIs, but 4 for 27 hits wise. And he actually was off to a solid start to start the year because overall his numbers, no one's going to say 259 on base is great. But he had a homer, 9 RBIs, 7 runs scored. The last week has been rough for him. So some tough nights for Yandy Diaz. 3 hitless games, and then last night he does go 1 for 4 and score a run. But prior to last night, 3 hitless games in a row, 0 for 5, 0 for 4, 0 for 5. Tough sledding for Yandy Diaz the last few games.
And he's one, I always thought his floor was pretty high. I never really found myself drafting him because I think people, continue to expect him to take that next step. I never did, but it always felt like he had a safe floor. So this one's been kind of weird to watch so far this season. Yeah, I think that's a good call out. My next one's another one. I'm going to continue to take my lumps. I'm going to point out guys that I'm not hiding from some of my calls that have mistaken, because those are going to happen, and that's Henry Davis of the Pittsburgh Pirates, who has also been ice cold and who's actually kind of right now. I don't know if you've been following. Seems like he may be at risk of losing the catcher job, right? With the signing of Joey Bart. They may have a spot for him in the outfield still, but when you're hitting 156 with no home runs, there's not going to be a spot for you anywhere, right? So um, it's been very tough to watch. Again, 2 RBIs, 12 strikeouts, and 32 at
The one
bats.
thing that benefits him, I think he's very good defensively, right? Like, I think pop time I saw recently, like, he has the fastest in the league maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, he's a great defensive catcher, and you're absolutely right. But Joey Bart's no slouch either behind the
Yep.
dish, and if his bat's cooking, Davis is just going to find himself on a short side of a timeshare there. So, again, maybe not the end of the season for him, but if he starts, only getting a few starts a week, or he's not in the lineup, he's going to lose value. Even if he starts playing better, he's just not going to have the fantasy value because there's just not enough starts there. So that's something to keep an eye on. In the last 1, 2, 3 games that they've played, he's got 4 at bats. So it certainly looks like it could be starting. So we'll see. We'll see. Just keep an eye on it. Depending on where you drafted him, it may not matter. But some people started to draft him pretty high towards the end of the draft season, myself included. And so this is kind of not a very welcome sight, and not one that was really on our radar. Right? We were expecting him to take over that catcher job and just run with it. And the addition of Joey Bart has not made me feel any better.
My last not hot, I'll give it away right now. It's also a guy who you should buy low on, so we'll slide right into the buy low and sell high.
Sure.
Uh, that's Gleyber Torres on the year, a 192 average, only 2 RBIs. He doesn't have a homer yet. On base 295. He's really struggled, but he was moved down in the Yankee lineup. He's never been good out of that leadoff spot. Now you at least expect him to be batting with runners on, and I expect him to look a lot better. He already did his first game. I thought his first couple games, or his last couple games, I should say, but his first game batting in the 5 or 6 hole, he looked better. He had a couple of walks, so already starting to look a little bit better since being slid down, and I think he's going to only get better from there. So it's been a slow start for Gleyber Torres, and I don't have a lot. I have one buy low and one sell high, so that's all I got for you. So he's my first buy low. He's also who's not hot currently, but Gleyber Torres is my first buy low. So that's number one.
Okay. My first buy low is Lane Thomas. Um,
I like that for
he
me.
he his last 2 games he's 0 for 8, but the 3 games before that, 3 hits, 2 hits, 2 hits, and he started off cold, and I think myself included, I drafted him around pick 100, a little bit after pick 100, somewhere in that range, and this production has just been horrible. He's hitting 191 with 1 home run. He does have 6 steals, which has been very, very nice, but he's still hitting the ball hard. He, strikeout rate to walk rate's been good. So if there is a buy window right now, I would certainly take it, because this feels like it's only going to get better. Like, I think this isn't who he is. So I think, some luck's going to come his way, and, the Nationals aren't very good. He's not going to get the counting stats, but I think the power should be there, and the speed looks like it's there. Like, we've never seen it before, right? His career high in stolen base, he had 20 last year. 6 so far this year. I mean, he could easily, it looks like he could push for 25, 30. So, and wouldn't be surprised to see him hit 25 home runs again. So Lane Thomas is a guy I'm all over.
My sell high. If somebody's willing to spend a lot for this person, you should sell high, because this is as good as it's going to get for him. 1, he's an injury risk. 2, he's never going to have the RBI and run score production that you want. And we talked about him earlier. That's Mike Trout. If somebody's willing to give you a ton for him, because all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, Mike Trout looks like Mike Trout. Yeah, when Mike Trout's healthy, he still looks like the best player in baseball. And that's what he looks like. But that lineup, no one's going to help him around him. He's not going to have the RBIs. He's not going to have the runs scored. As we see, this is how, as good as he's looked, he still can't get the RBIs and runs scored. He's been one of the best players in the league so far this year. And it's not particularly close. But at the same time, this is as good as it's going to get. And then you factor in the injury risk. If someone's willing to give you a bunch for Mike Trout, trade him.
Yeah. And same kind of thing goes with my sell high, and that's Tyler O'Neill. You want to talk about a guy who hits a lot of home runs and has no RBIs to come with it. He's got 6 home runs and 7 RBIs. Like,
We do have a fan question about that, a mailbag question. So
okay,
yes, go
yeah.
ahead.
I mean, just real quick spiel on him. Yeah, he's got 13 runs, which we love to see. He's hitting 343 with a 1300 OPS. Like, you're like, why would you ever want to trade a guy like that on your team? Same reason you want to trade Mike Trout. He's an injury risk, right? Like, we just don't know how long it's going to keep up. He feels one tweak and that's it. He's never had over 500 at bats in a season. Never. The last time he had over 400 was 2021. So,
I almost want to trade for him just so I could flip him. Like, honestly,
it's not a bad idea, but yeah, you better be willing to. You got to know your league mates or see if you can find someone, because you don't want to pay for him and then
and then
have
be stuck with him on your
try
roster.
to yeah, you can't really get rid of him. So, but he's the hot name in fantasy right now. He's a top 25 overall player, right? It's hard to say to trade a guy who's been that good for you, but if you can get top 100 value, top 75 value, which I don't think is out of the question, because I will say, like, if he stays healthy, right? Big if, but if he stays healthy, that's the kind of ceiling we're talking about, right? This is a top 50 player. He's got the skills. He's shredded, right? Like, the guy he's an athlete. And so, there's certainly a possibility that it pans out for him, but the risk reward for me is just, it's not there. And so, yeah, I'm going to sell high if I have him anywhere.
All right, you got this is your time to shine. You can update us on our leagues and then also hit us with the prospect report. So let's do both of those things.
Sure. So, I beat you last week 6-4, right? We went over that.
Yeah,
I'm
I mean, it happens.
Yeah,
The
oh yeah.
categories were all close.
Mhm.
But yes, you did ultimately get the win. We haven't been on since it was official because we were on Sunday morning. But yes, Sunday afternoon it became official that you won. All right. Tip the cap.
But I mean, if it makes you feel any better, so this is where fantasy baseball is weird, right? Like, my team in this league has been like, I have Lindor and Henry Davis and Aaron Nola, who's been horrible. Like, I have a lot of guys who I've missed on in this league, and I'm currently losing 0 to 10 to the guy that I'm playing right now. So I'm certainly worried about that. And I think the more concerning thing for me in that league is I by by statistics wise, I have the worst team statistics wise by far, like 12 out of 12. And this, it
What does
happens.
that say about me that you beat me with the worst statistics?
Well, it says that you're 10th, so you're not too
Oh,
far ahead
great.
of me, right? Yeah, no, so this is just how it's gonna go. I'm certainly not out
Perfect.
of it,
Good thing
right?
we're
It's
hosting
only
a fantasy baseball podcast.
10 and 12. No, that happened. I could tell you all these leagues that I'm doing great in, right? But I don't want to sit here and take victory laps. I want to look at what's gone wrong for me, and that's only going to make me a better player, and hopefully should only make other people who listen to this better players. It's very hard to sit here and say this team is the worst team statistically in the league, right? It's very hard to say that right now, but it hasn't been good. There's been a lot of misses. It's only we're 2 weeks into the season, so I'm not hitting the panic button, but Lindor's been a miss. Jake Berger hasn't totally panned out, although
Oh,
he's hit a home run yesterday.
yes, you did. Three
Some of
run
my other
bomb.
calls, yeah, even it hasn't panned out the way that I was hoping. Some of these guys, JP Crawford's been another pretty big disappointing guy. um so I've missed quite a bit. So um there's that, and then I don't have our best ball. Give
It's
me two
funny.
seconds.
Yeah, you could find it. I'm 5-5 in my
Sure.
league this week. I'm
Mhm.
losing all 5 offensive categories by a mile. And then I'm winning all 5 pitching categories. I have 2.77 ERA, 27 strikeouts, a 1.3 whip, 3 quality starts already, 2 save holds. So looking pretty good for me from that perspective when it comes to the pitching side of it. My pitching has looked good this week, and then it's funny. I'm 5-5 in my other league also, so I guess I'm just perfectly average in every way. Um, That's what it seems like. Although in the other league, it's actually funny. I'm leading in strikeouts, and I'm close in all the pitching categories. Um, but I'm beating him in all the offensive categories. So you know,
I will say
that's how
too,
it goes.
one of the reasons why I think I'm in the worst, the worst statistically is because I was starting relievers last week, right? And Camilo Duvall, absolutely horrible. Jose Leclerc, absolutely horrible. Hector Neris, all of their
Dude.
ERAs are over 6. So, those kind of really tanked my pitching stats. Um,
All right.
and
You have anything on our best ball?
yeah, so far again, another not looking too good for me, but you're 6th. So you're right
Hey.
in the middle of the pack there. I'm currently 10th. Just looking at some of the guys who've really panned out for you. Freddie Freeman, obviously you knew that one was coming.
Yep.
Um, who else? Jared Kelnick, who, I guess maybe not, he's only got 26 at bats, but he's hitting 462. So kind of
Hey.
odd there. Um, and then Dylan Cease has been pretty solid for you. Had a really solid outing against the Cubs yesterday. Um, Grayson Rodriguez has looked really good. Uh,
Yes.
So
Tell me
you,
about that. Where were you for the 8-0 lead eventual comeback loss by I mean, you saw Don Orsillo, shout out, follows me. Maybe he's listening to this right now. The play-by-play broadcaster for the San Diego Padres, one of my favorites in the league. And not just because he follows me, he was my favorite before that. But he you saw he posted Fernando Tatis's go-ahead two-run homer, obviously. But that was just a crazy game. I saw 8-0. I just kind of like looked at it. And I like, kind of looked at it and forgot about it. I was like, all right, Cubs are looking pretty good. And then I didn't even know that San Diego came back until I saw Arcillo post the home run call. I was like, oh my God, the Padres. I assume you just were out in Arizona not watching it.
no, I was out in Arizona, but I was watching it. I went to just this local bar. I was alone that night. I had no, so I was like, I'm just gonna go watch the game, have some drinks and have some food. And it was the same night as the national championship, and so the Cubs are on the side, and I'm watching the national. Once I see that they're up 8-0, I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
I'm gonna turn some attention to the national championship. Then, oh hey, game's over. Back to the Cubs, 8-7. How did that happen? Right? Like,
Right.
I remember I saw Jake Cronenworth hit his solo home run, and I'm like, okay, whatever, fine, 8-1. And then I'm locked in, and I Tatis hit the bomb, and I was like, that's it. Like, I a lot of the Cubs fans are kind of over Adbert Alzolay for some reason at this point. I get it. Maybe he's not the shutdown guy that we expected, but
Who
yeah, that one
is?
kind of hurt. Right, right. So I'd say give him a little bit more time. Don't run out and try to trade for Emmanuel Clase because you probably overpay. But yeah, that one did hurt quite a bit.
Aside from Jackson Holiday, do you have any prospect updates for us? Prospect
Um,
report.
yeah, so when we consider like what this prospect report is for, I could talk about so many guys who are, in the low minors who are having great years or who have started off really hot, but I think I should be giving you players who, are going to have an impact for your fantasy rosters like this year. And the one that keeps coming back that I'm kind of upset that I haven't mentioned so far is Joey Loperfido for the Houston Astros. So far, in 18 oh wait, I guess, sorry, this was spring training. The spring training stats were phenomenal. Like, I'm actually kind of surprised that they didn't consider him. He was hitting 382 by the end of spring training. um I think he's got a great hit tool. He's got good power, good speed. He's a fantasy contributor, and he's a guy that I'm looking to pick up pretty much everywhere, even in like some of my 12s if I have the roster space for it. He's a guy that I'm really looking at because I think it's only a matter of time before he gets a call. Houston wants to win, and I think this guy gives them the best chance to win. And um, you know, I'm very excited to see what Joey Loperfido can do in the majors. So outside of Jackson Holiday, everybody knows about him, but maybe not everyone knows about Loperfido. And let me see if I can. How many leagues is he in? So he's available. He's rostered in 25% of leagues. So people have been slowly picking him up. Um, drafted in 8% of leagues. So if he's available and you have a roster spot for him, I'd try to grab him. He may not be, a league winner, but he should certainly be a contributor sooner rather than later.
What about Heston Kierstead? I see a lot of people picking him up in some leagues. Is he coming up anytime soon?
I don't think he's coming up before Kobe Mayo. I think Kobe
Okay.
Mayo is if you're gonna pick up any more Baltimore guys, I'd pick up Mayo first. Just with Ryan O'Hearn, Ryan Mountcastle, I think there's an easier path to playing time. Jordan Westberg is at third, right? Kobe Mayo has a much easier chance than Kierstead does. Because they got Hayes, they got Colton Cowser, they got Anthony Santander. I think there's just more competition in those corner spots for Kierstead than there is for Kobe Mayo. But either one I think is good. It's just if I have a preference, I'm probably going Mayo.
Got it. I do have a couple of fan questions here.
Okay.
So are we ready for that? Is that
Yeah. Let's hear it. Hopefully, I'm ready for him. What do you got?
all right? So this is our mailbag part of the episode, and from Matt, he asked, "Who will the Rangers closer be if Leclerc keeps this up?" So if this continues with Leclerc, and it's been rough, who do you see the Rangers going to as a closer? Maybe someone you can grab right now.
Um, let's see. So, I think the quick answer was David Robertson. Um, I could even see Kirby Yates getting some
Okay.
some leeway. He's looked phenomenal, and he's probably the guy like that may still be out there, right? Um, he's rostered in 17% of leagues, but he has yet to give up a run this year, right? And he's only allowed was it one base runner, right? Yeah, he's allowed one hit and no
Mm.
walks in four appearances. So I could absolutely see Kirby Yates getting some run and probably a guy who's available in most leagues. So that would be my answer. If you can pick up anyone, I'd probably go for him.
Another question, and this is kind of I talked about this earlier, is from Gina. We love the female listeners. Tyler O'Neill, what the heck? Can he keep it up?
Yeah, 100%. He can. Um, is it a bet I'm willing to take? I don't think so. Um, I hope he does. It's good for baseball because he's so much fun to watch. And Boston, for all the losses that they've kind of taken over the last few years, it's fun to see them finally get a win in Tyler O'Neill and take him away from St. Louis. I'm happy he's not doing this in St. Louis as a Cubs fan, obviously. So,
Yep.
yeah, can he? Yes. If you want to take that risk, I would not blame you for holding on to him and trying to ride it out. But yeah, if I can get a top 75 player for him, which I think is certainly possible because I think that's, the kind of ceiling that he has. He's obviously showing that right now. He's even a top, 50 player if everything clicks. So can he do it? Yes. Certainly has the tools for it. It's just the health, right? Can he stay healthy? That's the part where I'm like, because this time next week he could be done for a
Yep.
little while, and so I don't want that like that quick drop off. If it comes playoff times and you have him and oh look he's out for a couple weeks, like that's a key cog in your roster. I want a little more safety. So yeah, he can. Just not willing to take that risk.
All right, one more fan question, and I have a couple for you, just for me. But Max is asking, he's in an auction league, and so he drafted heavy on offense. So
Mhm.
he was able to spend a lot on offensive guys. For example, he has both Mookie Betts and Mike Trout, so
Sure.
he's looking good offensively so far. So he has offense to spare, but he's looking for pitching. He was offered Nathan Eovaldi and Jackson Holliday, who was just called up,
Mhm.
for CJ Abrams and Juan Soto, who's been off to a
Mm,
hot start.
no, but I mean, for
The
Juan
thing for
Soto,
me
there's
is we don't know enough about Jackson Holiday, and Evaldi's always been a health risk.
yeah,
Soto,
no,
is going to be healthy, and Jackson Holiday probably will be better than CJ Abrams this year, like moving
I
forward.
wouldn't even think
But like,
so.
yeah, I don't know.
No, no, tell him he should hit decline immediately. Like Juan Soto is not going to move. Like if I was offered Evaldi and Jackson Holiday for Juan Soto, no way. I'm not taking that.
Yeah.
Like New York's on fire. Soto is like key cog in that team.
Yep.
Like absolutely no way. And CJ Abrams is actually a guy who I've been wrong on because The
Yeah, I
one
mean, I
knock
was high on him. I was really high on him.
the one knock I had on him was just that he didn't hit the ball hard enough, and so I'm like, "Okay, he's gonna hit 10 home runs at the most and steal a lot of bases." He's hitting the shit out of the ball right now, like, so, and absolutely, I'm not moving on from Abrams unless I get a good return, and like you said, Evaldi's a health risk. Yeah, if you're decimated for injuries, I can see it, but I also think there's plenty of guys who are probably available, that you can go grab, pitching wise, who have a good ceiling. Trying to think, like I know Cade Horton's one that I'm thinking of, right?
How about so I got
Mhm.
2 for you, 2 names for you.
Sure. Okay.
Martin Perez, can he keep it up? I know
Yeah.
you mentioned him on last
Hmm.
episode. I mean, he's just been crazy good. And then is this a sell a buy low guy? Uh, Brian Bayo. I mean, please tell me he's a buy low guy because he's been not great at all for me.
Yeah, he's one I was high on last year. I think he definitely
I'm
bounces
high.
back.
Everyone was
Um,
high on him, and at this point last year, I remember it was exactly this time last year where I was looking around the league like, oh, who wants to buy low on? I feel like I don't want to sell right now because it was Sandy Alcantara who started so terribly. I was like, I'm not getting rid of him because, and then by the end of the year, I was like, man, this guy just sucked all year. Who was a guy who was we'd seen him do it in the past, was really hyped. I'm a little bit scared right now.
yeah, and if you are looking for arms, back to the just the question because I was pulling up some names here. There's some prospects that I'm willing to kind of hold on for a while because again, this season's a marathon. I'm not trying to trade for the hot arm right now. If you can go pick up maybe one or two of these guys, Ricky Tiedemann, Cade Horton, Christian Scott, like we talked about earlier, AJ Smith Shaver, even Jack Leiter, Jackson Job is getting a little bit farther down there. He's just maybe a while, but Drew Thorpe, Nick Nastrini, like there's tons of guys. All of these guys are probably going to make a debut at some point and come up and have a fantasy impact. So I'd rather wait on some of those guys and maybe take a couple flyers now and hold on rather than going and do not trade Juan Soto for Holiday and Eovaldi. It's not worth it. I'm sorry, Jackson Holiday, super high ceiling, but at that point too, you're giving up CJ Abrams. Like no, not a
Yeah.
chance.
And so that's interesting. So maybe he could try and get more pitching out of CJ Abrams because maybe CJ is a little bit of a sell high type of guy.
Yeah.
But I also it's interesting because and the reason I chose that question is because it puts in perspective, and I don't know if he wrote this before or after Jackson Holiday was called up, but it puts in perspective how we feel about Jackson Holiday. That's
Mhm.
kind of what I wanted to get out here, where he's great, and it's nice that he's called up early, and it's going to be super cool to see him play. But keep it in perspective. He's still a rookie who's going to go through his lumps and is in a loaded lineup. And if he's not performing, they didn't bring him up to bench him. But if he's not performing, he may play 5 days a week instead of 7. He may not have every at bat because this is a team that's trying to win games as much as they're trying to, develop and move these guys along. They're not going to risk wins for it. So if he is struggling, which will happen because he's a rookie, uh, that kind of again puts in perspective of how we feel about him.
Yeah, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, right? Is the saying, and Jackson Holiday is one of the birds in the bush, right? We don't know what we're gonna get from him. I don't think it's gonna be bad. I'm not saying like, oh, he could be terrible. Like
He's going
he's
to be really
probably going
good,
to
I
be good.
think.
He's going to be
Yeah.
very good, right? But is he going to be a top 10 fantasy guy moving forward? We just don't know that. There's such a wide range of outcomes that I'm not willing to take that kind of. I think this is where like dynasty baseball leaks into the redraft league a little bit too much because Jackson Holiday is a top 20 dynasty asset at this point, right?
Oh, for
There's
sure.
no question about that. But is he a top 20 redraft player? That's where it's like, I don't really know. Like we're getting to that point where maybe he's not. And now that he's been called up, he pushes up a little bit. But yeah, don't go crazy over him. Don't go trading Juan Soto for him because um, you're gonna regret that, especially when Evaldi gets hurt, if when Evaldi gets hurt.
Soto for Jackson Holiday in a dynasty league, straight up.
Probably not. No.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, Soto's proven and he's 25 also. It's not like he's
well,
that
right.
much
It's not
older.
like he's old,
Yeah,
right? If Soto
yeah.
was like 30, okay, sure, I could see
Right, if
that.
it was
But
Aaron Judge, yeah.
yeah, it's not like Soto is a bad, he's not. I just no, there's no chance.
All right. So that's gonna do it for us on this episode. good one, I think.
Yeah.
We covered a lot of stuff, a lot of topics. And so until next time, everyone, please continue to like, subscribe, share it, send those questions, send those mailbag questions in. We appreciate it. If there's nothing else that you have, that's all I got.
No, I think it was a good episode. Send the questions in and let us know what you think in the comments.
Yep. We'll see you guys soon.
Bye.